Secretary Starrett, thank you so much for your service and your time. I want to ask you what motivated you to run for county commissioner back in the beginning, and what keeps you coming back?
Well, that's a great question, Todd. I think, like a lot of people, you never really anticipated or prepared for or thought in terms of elected office. But I think what happens is people get involved in politics when it starts to impact them. We're seeing that more and more. We're seeing people involved in school boards and local city council races because they see that these local issues really do have an impact. So someone had asked me to run for commissioner, and I was basically going to be running against an incumbent. And I ran against an incumbent because the policies I felt were really not in line with the people in Yamhill County who have property rights is important and family values are important. But I was thinking more in terms of how do we preserve that. So I ran. And, again, the rest is history. It would be so much easier to just say, because at that point I thought, I'm pretty much retired. And so every time you make the decision to run again, it's because you've got work you still want to do. And because basically we're trying to hold on to territory that we know is local governments are really where the rubber meets the road.
One of the reasons I want to do this show is to give people a deeper insight into the life of our local representatives, as it were. So you oversee the county budget. That's huge in and of itself. You oversee and provide input to a whole bunch of areas, including public safety, emergency services, public health, and your liaison to a lot of entities, including health and human services. And I noticed, I looked at this kind of shocked me. It shouldn't have, I guess. But I looked for the last recording of your public session, which was earlier in November, and it was 6 hours long. Is that normal?
No. Well, they used to be a whole lot shorter, but there's so many issues and so many land use. Sometimes if you have a public hearing, usually involves land use, something like that, they will go much longer. That was interesting because we were going to be not going weekly at that point. We had 2 weeks where we were to be able to have sessions, so we kind of piled everything into one meeting. But a lot of them are going longer, 2 and 3 hours, because we have public hearings, because we have lots of agenda items, and there are lots of it seems like the issues are becoming more and more weighty and more controversial, where it used to be pretty much rubber stamping different contracts. Now we're having discussions that really involve very polarizing, if you will, issues.
And one of the things that inspired me to start this show was to have a counterpoint to the News Register's take on really you and another commissioner. It always seems to be slanted against you and making you look like the bad guy, as it were. One particular topic, I'm just going to read from a recent News Register editorial. It says, just a couple of weeks ago, the two county commissioners who think they know more about everything than everyone else were ignoring the thoughtful, impartial advice of medical and public health professionals. Would you mind elaborating for me on what the editor is referring to?
Sure. As we know, the CDC, the World Health Organization, the FDA have been putting out information, which is now we're finding out, and many of us knew this all along, was patently misinformation regarding the COVID vaccines, COVID itself, the testing, all of that. And brought that to the attention of the Oregon Health Authority and locally the Public Health Department, talking about the fact that we're encouraging people to take a vaccine which is experimental and which has shown to have some very serious side effects. When I bring this up, and I am certainly not the only person who has access to this information, clinical data from Pfizer, which the FDA tried to keep confidential for 75 years, information which is coming out now about these adverse events, when I brought that up 3 years ago, I was told that you're a conspiracy theorist and you're an anti-vaxxer. Well, we've come to find out that this information, all of it, what the CDC and the FDA have said, all of it has been borne out. So what I said is we should no longer be putting on our website safe and effective, safe and effective. It's not effective. It doesn't prevent transmission or contracting COVID, and it's not safe because we're seeing so many side effects, especially in pregnant women and heart inflammation in young men. Some of these side effects are horrific and have resulted in death. It has long passed the safety alert where it should have been pulled. Many vaccines have been pulled for a lot less than this. So what I said was, I'm not going to sign on an Oregon Health Authority contract with the county that asks us to promote something we now know is not safe and not effective. Well, that caused all kinds of heartburn over at the News Register, because they said, well, you're not a doctor. Well, I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm looking outside and I can see it's raining. So for us to acknowledge that this is not safe, not effective, and then to, on the other hand, sign a contract asking us to promote something we know is not beneficial, I won't do it, and that caused a problem. So the Oregon Health Authority, through the Department of Justice, is now weighing our decision and will make a determination on these contracts. We get our money for health and human services and public health from the Oregon Health Authority, which is $36 billion bloated government agency that has been telling us all how to live our lives for the past however many years.
Did you bring physical evidence of some of the things you said are the ill effects of the vaccines?
Well, I've been talking about this for, as I said, going on 3 years. I've been talking about Pfizer's data, which I had before anyone else did, and I've been talking about this, and it's certainly out there if people want to find it. I have the receipts, I bring the receipts, but nobody is interested because you can't find what you're not looking for. So if you're getting your information from Oregon Health Authority, which has got their skin in the game to promote vaccines, I don't think we need to be pimps for big pharma, and that's exactly what we've turned into.
Are we required to follow the directives and the mandates of the governor and Oregon Health Authority? Is that a constitutional foundation, or are we just being fooled?
Well, when you have a contract, it's kind of like this. He who has the gold makes the rules. That's the golden rule. And we get money from the Oregon Health Authority, but I do believe, and I've said all along, that does not mean that we need to rubber stamp everything that Oregon Health Authority, which are unelected bureaucrats, send our way. The governor has been, hand in glove with the Oregon Health Authority in terms of her endless emergency declarations and some of these unconstitutional mandates that we have seen. And I'm hoping that will change with the resignation of OHA Director Pat Allen, but I don't have too many hopes, seeing as the governor-elect is of the same ilk as our previous governor.
Do you have any say? It seems to me like I read that you were trying to put more truth on the website too. Is that something you can do, or is it really you hope to influence it?
The Board of Commissioners can direct a department head to do anything. The problem is you've got people who in public health who really do follow the orders and the prevailing narrative out there, and they don't divert from that. I remember over a year ago saying, we're not telling people about the importance of vitamin D. For that, someone filed an ethics complaint against me. Vitamin D is very important, and especially in our minority populations, we're doing them a disservice by not telling people how you can increase your odds of staying healthy. And those are the natural things we can do. So if that makes me a conspiracy theorist, well, let me straighten my tinfoil hat.
There you go. And zinc and hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and all these things that the CDC has actually turned around and said that they're okay now. But anyway, we've got our work cut out for it. What energizes you most during the day? What keeps you going? Is it the meetings? Is it the research? Is it just knowing you're doing good for us?
Well, we have a lot of meetings and we have a lot of conversations with people. For me, at the end of the day, I made a decision early on. I was never going to do what was politically expedient, or I was never going to do what was going to be easy or popular. It was always with an eye toward letting people who don't have a voice, telling the truth, even if it means that we turn around and take a hard look at what government is doing, maybe our government, here locally and saying this is not acceptable, and actually being able to keep eyes on it for the people, because those are the people who hire us.
Exactly. No, I really appreciate that you are so strong at trying to hold government accountable and not letting it just bloat. As big as a job as yours is, we should be praying for you regularly. Does God play a role in your life and work at all?
Actually, thank you for that, and I do appreciate the offers of prayer, because it's foundational to everything I do. I don't believe I would be doing this of my own accord. I feel like, God puts us where he puts us, and sometimes we don't choose that, but, we don't presume to give God orders. We show up for duty, and we know that if he brings us to it, he'll direct us through the difficulties of it. And we see a lot of people who are suffering because they have, they've stood up, for what he calls righteousness. And we're seeing a lot of people that are being imprisoned and arrested, and even in this country, which has become almost unrecognizable. So yes, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and I believe that there is nothing that should supersede that relationship, and that is where I get my marching orders.
Amen. One of my mottos for this show, should it continue to be something that is available, is the whole earth will be filled with the glory of the knowledge of God. I think that's Habakkuk. And in all areas, not just our own personal, private, religious life, but in, media, government, religion, arts and entertainment, business, family, education. God should be glorified everywhere by people who love and trust him. So that's one of the things that's getting me going about this show. I do want to ask one final question. Do you have any, I saw a really great, on the last video online, input from Carrie Hinton on why it took so long to count the vote. And I have a lot of thoughts about that. Do you have any concerns about voter integrity in Yamhill County?
Well, I think that Carrie Hinton is unimpeachable. She's perhaps will go down in history as the county clerk who had the most, really with an eye toward getting information out to voters. She's a hard worker, and I have no doubt that she is doing everything that she can to keep this above board. And the problem is that we have mail-in voting, which just makes it so much easier for people who shouldn't be voting to vote, and for people for there to be, no accountability. We also now have a new law that says you can, as long as your ballot is postmarked, so you're collecting ballots a week after the ballot deadline. So these are concerns. I think we're seeing that borne out around the country, that mail-in ballots, by design, makes it very easy to cheat. The state of Oregon, one of the forefront leaders of mail-in ballots, I don't have a lot of faith in the mail-in ballot system, and I think that's what we need to address. I would love to see it, paper ballots where we have a trail. Anything that's computerized can be hacked, has been hacked. But as far as what goes on in the county, I think that anything that is within the capacity of the clerk and the clerk's staff and election workers to address, they have.
Is it possible for the county to change how we look at or follow through with the process? Can we go to paper only and ID and vote day of, or are we stuck with the Oregon system?
The Constitution gives states the authority to determine that. The state has determined that, and just like everything else that the legislature does per Multnomah County and the blue counties, we're stuck with it. We just have to make. And the problem is, we need to keep eyes on it because it's concerning.
It really is. Mary Starrett, thank you so much for your service and your time, and I hope we can have further conversations.
Thanks so much, Todd.
Do you know of a story that needs to be reported, a person who needs to be heard? Let me know and write to me at truthseekeroregon@gmail.com.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of these United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to my country I make my pledge to always love, protect, and defend her. And we the people across this land, one nation